watching more coverage of SAP Sapphire 2019, Orlando, Florida. It is nice, humid. I'm glad, Justin Jones, your hair is doing a lot better than mine. We have Justin Jones from the Converged Infrastructure team at Dell EMC. Thank you again, Dell EMC, for sponsoring the CTO Dose. Justin, we're going to get right off to it. You're going to kind of give me a presentation that you guys have been giving your customers in the booth, but there is, the ultimate question. You're going to answer this question for me, I think, of why is Dell Technologies, the creator of the vBlock 1000, here at a show that is progressively more about cloud. But I don't think this is a conversation about cloud. It's more about business capability. You're going to share, I think, with me that story.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us. And you're not the first person to kind of ask me that question today. We've had a few people come by and go like, what are we doing here? But it's a pretty good story. Everything ties together. And it really ties together under some of the announcements we had last week around hybrid cloud and why that's making a difference for our customers. But what I'd like to do is probably dial it back just a little bit, and we'll get to that hybrid cloud piece. But let's start by talking about, we'll touch on kind of what a VxBlock is and why we think the story does matter to folks here at Sapphire. So when we go talk to our customers, we're really having four main conversations, right? One is around simplification. So a lot of our customers still live in this siloed world where they have storage running in one place, they have compute running in another place, and they're looking for a way to make that life a little easier. And that's someplace where converged and hyper-converged really come into play for them. And you talk about specifically on-premises, and we'll tie that into that hybrid cloud story.
So let's talk about, I think, some of that complexity right off the bat. I've been in environments where we've had VMAX arrays, we've had HP UX Itanium-based systems, we've had networking from Cisco, and trying to manage that all is truly silos. Especially when you're thinking about SAP, which is, I've been in organizations, we've called it a data center within the data center. There is a whole team dedicated to running SAP infrastructure versus the rest of the infrastructure. So while SAP itself, from an operational perspective, wasn't a silo, the individual components itself was a silo, and I can tell you from experience, it is complex.
Oh yeah, so I grew up in the data center, and I remember the first times I met these people named basis administrators. I was like, what's a basis administrator? This makes no sense.
It's kind of sorry you met them.
Well, they've changed my life in a lot of good ways.
Yes.
But yeah, you take that complexity, so you think about all these silos, and how do you manage all of that? Do you have separate teams to run your VMAX as opposed to your HP storage? Your compute side, you may have multiple different areas there, and you've got to have different teams trained in different ways to manage all of these different systems. So that adds to your OpEx. It adds to just the complexity of that administration. You think about trying to back all of that up. How are you going to protect all that data if they're in different machines? Is your network going to handle that load? And not just backup, but business continuity in general. It makes life more difficult when you've got all that complexity. And we'll talk some more about that here in just a minute too. One of the other really great conversations we're having is about migration. Everybody's got it top of mind, right? 2025, it's this looming date, it's this big black hole in the future. What are they going to do with it? We don't necessarily want to force people over or feel like they have to be forced right away to go to S4. In a VxBlock, which is a piece of converged infrastructure, you can actually run things in a traditional manner, and you can also run side by side in that S4 in kind of an isolated area, making sure that you're hitting the KPIs correctly to ensure the TDI certifications and all that good stuff that makes SAP say, hey, yeah, keep running it in here, this is great. We're having conversations about maybe people don't want to move to the cloud, but they want to run it like a cloud. They want that automation, they want that simplicity, they want to make life easier. So we start having discussions around landscape manager plus vRealize plus hooks into the infrastructure. And we dive more into that too. And then the fourth conversation we're having quite a bit is around that complete IoT solution, right? Pulling data in and trying to understand it, that's not new for anybody, right? Everybody's been doing it for the last 40 years. We just didn't have a great way to do it. We've gotten a lot better The strategies that SAP is introducing are getting more refined. So we're seeing better ways to do this. So we talk about that whole edge to core story between gateways, shipping the data, maybe sorting a little bit, then shipping it over, then checking it out in the core or looking at it in SAP world and in Leonardo. So there's a number of conversations we're having. We're having these conversations based on this VX block, right? So I'll give you a quick idea of what it is. If you take that complex 3-tier infrastructure you have, the network, the storage, the compute, and that virtualization over the top, wrap it all up, deliver it as a turnkey system, and now you have something that you can run immediately, right? It's delivered, ready to run, and then the other really nice piece about it is that going forward on day 2 to day 720 to day 650, that's bad math, but I think you know what I mean. You have a sequenced delivery of the firmware, the software that keep all of your components in line, ensured they're going to run, right? So it's engineered at the start, and it's engineered as you move forward too.
So let's dive in.
Yeah. So the way we start our conversations typically with our customers is to give just a little bit of the lay of the land. And here at SAP, at Sapphire, they're so much more knowledgeable about this, so we don't spend much time here. But we do touch on kind of where you start with R3 and that move over to S4 as a foundational element, right?
Right.
You may not be there today, but you've got to move to it soon. So you may need to get some infrastructure that's SAP HANA ready, or S4 HANA ready. So you can.
I guess that's. Hate to interrupt, but let's kind of put this nail in the coffin. Can I run R3 on S4 ready hardware? Like, is this something that I have to segment? Can I grow into the S4 infrastructure, or do I have to just have this wasted hardware for sitting there for 1 to 2 years while my S4 project is delayed?
No, that's a great question, and that's actually the story we're starting to have in our booth and with our customers over and over. And you can run them in the same infrastructure, and that's really a highlight of the VX block. When you think about it as a 3-tier infrastructure, it still has arrays with rich data services, industry regulation basically written around some of these things to cater to them. It still has massive compute ability, and it's all wrapped into a network. So you can run that traditional R3 infrastructure, and then right in the same infrastructure, you can isolate out your SAP HANA delivery. So you can run that in the same piece of infrastructure, leveraging network, leveraging cabinets, leveraging space, leveraging power, right? So it's not an exclusive story, it's a very inclusive story.
And I guess that isolation is super important. I know that the isolation is super important, because when I call SAP support, the first thing they're going to ask me, whether it's TDI or appliance model, what am I running, and if it's certified. So I still get that certification for both R3 and S4 in this platform?
Yes, absolutely.
Outstanding.
And then the next conversations we have, really, we just talk about, since S4 is that foundation, if you want to run Leonardo, if you want to just really dive into the IoT angle, you got to have S4 first. If you want the management hub, you've got to have S4 first. So that's really kind of the lay of the land that we have. Then we typically move on pretty quickly to what are the migration stories that our customers are talking through and talking about, right? And really, I think we kind of covered it a little bit already. We got a little ahead of ourselves, but it goes to talk about being able to run R3 and S4 in the same infrastructure. And then the other piece of that, though, too, is it's more than just R3 to S4, right? It could be an OS migration. It could be a platform migration when you're looking at the type of infrastructure.
So what we didn't talk about is the details around data movement. We talked about this a lot with the EMC storage team last week at Dell Technologies World. When I need to perform analysis on data, I need that data to be close to the compute. In migrations, I don't think that's any different. If I'm going to move from an R3 disk-based database to an in-memory database, if it's on the same platform, it makes a big difference from speed of migration to be able to have that data literally right next to, in this case, on the same system that it's going to be migrated on.
Yeah, because you don't even have to go out onto basically your spine network, right? Keep
Right.
all the traffic within the VX block itself. And that's not just something that applies to those types of migrations. Think about system copy, refresh, and cloning. You can keep it within that same system, right? Keeping that all of that data transfer off of your larger network and improving the speed and the ability to do that. So then we start diving into that conversation about modernization. I think we already talked about this, right? That siloed approach that a lot of our customers have, and we're trying to get through that. So we end up having 4 really good discussions with them. So when we talk about modernizing these solutions, right, and I think we already covered some of this. We talked about those siloed units of storage and compute. We talked about how that adds complexity, it adds heartache to the operations, it adds OpEx. The conversations that we end up having with our customers at Dell EMC really revolve around predictable performance for these mixed workloads at scale. So when you're looking at a VX block, right, you can start with a few nodes of compute and you can expand to thousands of nodes. You can start with a few petabytes and expand to hundreds of petabytes, which makes a lot of sense when you start thinking about data lakes and just tearing some of that data out of that in-memory database. You just don't want to cater to all of that high-end memory in there. We have conversations around simplifying and accelerating the SAP maintenance, right? So it comes back into having this whole thing networked within it as a system. Again, you can manage SAP a little bit easier. You're not porting out across the network all the time. We even have a storyline there that goes back to talk about the VX block and how we provide a bit of lifecycle, or we do provide lifecycle management in there, right? So the firmware and the software is constantly upgraded and managed, engineered, which de-risks your entire solution for SAP and lets you kind of focus on your basis administration, your ability to take care of the landscapes. And then we touched on application-driven data protection, right? So you still have access to everything across the board from not easy, but backup and replication that goes from data domain and Avamar all the way up to vPlex, SRDF, things that let you really enable that active type environment, or always on, I guess is what we would call it. And then that kind of ties into the last piece of the discussion we have with our customers, which is everything lives not just at the core, but at the edge and in the web, and it becomes a 24/7 environment. It's always on. So that's the last piece of that conversation, and all of those are kind of strengths of converged infrastructure in general.
So let's talk about the whole Dell Tech Better Together story. I heard this repeatedly at VMworld. I heard it again at Dell Tech World last week with Pat and Michael on stage. Tell me a little bit about VX block integration with VMware. Like, what you guys do anything with that? Am I leveraging my VMware investment when it comes to VX block?
Yeah, absolutely. So we described VX block Central. It's the tie-ins directly into the infrastructure. We tie that directly into vRealize, which then of course is tied up to Landscape Manager from SAP. So we're able to give you that complete story from Llama all the way down into the VX block itself. But let's talk more about storage. The VX block is a very flexible piece of equipment. I mean, we could put a PowerMax in there, VMAX, Isilon, Extreme IO, Unity arrays, and what we find is our customers typically will start with something on the higher end like a PowerMax to make sure they're giving SAP all of the performance it needs, all of the rich data services that PowerMax provides. But then we need to scale this thing out. And they're looking for a more cost-effective solution. So we can put an Isilon array right into this and provide that network-attached storage that will grow and grow and grow with our customers, giving them a place to archive and store data.
So for those of us that's not familiar with the Dell EMC storage product line, this is surprising because I'm familiar with the line. When I think of VX block, I think of the biggest, fastest thing that you can build. So I automatically think of PowerMax and VMAX, both enterprise data center quality consolidation platforms. But then when you throw in the names Isilon, when you throw in the name VNX, or I'm assuming even the Unity platform, when you throw in these more mid-range storage arrays, they also have a purpose and also integrated into this CI story.
Absolutely, yeah. And that was a lesson we learned over time, right? And you go back to like, what's that intrinsic value of the VX block? It's all these lessons we've learned over the last 10 years. You know, it's been 10 years since we made the VX block?
It's surprisingly long. Yeah, I didn't know it was that long.
Yeah, right? It was shocking
Right.
to me too, because I've been around for a while in it. That complexity doesn't just magically disappear. It's got to go someplace.
Right.
What we're really doing is removing it from our customer's data center, right? So all those boxes of complexity, all those connections of complexity, all that administration of complexity, we're pulling a lot of that out of our customers' way and making it easier for them to do business.
For those wanting more information about VX Block, what can they visit and where can they go on the web to find it?
Well, if you come to a Dell website and you search VX Block, you will have no shortage of information out there. I guarantee it.
I'm sure, and I think the marketing folks will appreciate that. That's it for this episode of the CTO Dose. To find out more about the CTO Advisor, you can visit us on the web, thectoadvisor.com. You can find me on Twitter at CTO Advisor. Talk to you next CTO Dose.